Well, again, I'm glad you came. The other night at the Mayor Alderman's meeting, Lee Davis brought up a point that I thought was very good. Is this loud enough?
Should not hear them again. They have reset them, but you can't turn them off if they come back on.
Wow. Okay. It's not a problem. And I'll try to talk louder. But he brought up the fact that I was inviting everybody to come to learn more about sewer systems, and they put it in context. Well, it's because Bill's trying to rezone some property basically across the street for 42 townhomes. And you've got to have sewer with townhomes. And so what I'd like to do is just encapsulate a little bit. I don't want to take all the time. Our experts need the time. But we're here tonight because several years ago, Walden developed a land use plan. And in October 2021, Mayor Lee Davis wrote a letter on top of it, and it became law, so to speak. And one of the points that he made, a range of housing that can serve the needs of its citizens. Mixture of housing types, attached residential. And in fact, in the neighborhood plan, right over here, that's the plan, and it shows townhomes on this 15 acres right here, which I own, and have owned for about 28 years. And this is what we're proposing. And it will look very similar. What's different is that in this recommendation, they're very rectangular. Ours are wider. And that's for a reason. Rectangular means 1.5 two-story tall units. We want them single level because we think that's the need in this community. The largest growing part of the population is 65 plus. This will be a great place for them to be. Now, why 42? We first looked at the contours and we figured out the layout. In fact, we got Jay Floyd here from Reagan Smith. I'm glad you're here, but they looked at the terrain. They looked at how we might have to balance the terrain. Came up with 42, which is great because WWTA, Wastewater Treatment Authority, requires in their ordinance that you have at least 40 for them to come out and maintain it. And at the end of the day, that's who you want to maintain this facility. You want someone with the deep pockets that's got the supervision and the oversight out of Nashville, and Dick Urban's going to talk about that, TDEC, because again, they've got the best interest. Their purpose, the objective that they were established is to look at communities and make sure systems like this are operated correctly and properly. So it looked like the plan was suggesting that. I wanted to do it right, do it professionally. So I hired Reagan Smith engineers. They're licensed. They're educated specialists. They got landscape architects on their staff. Hired Pat Newhoff to design this layout and do his work. And so it looked pretty good. We've gone to a lot of meetings, the environmental committee meeting, the roads and safety. So we talked about traffic, stormwater. There are no mines on this piece of property. There are none nearby. So the one thing, though, that we continue to hear rumors about and questions about is sewer. So I thought it worthwhile to bring together a group of experts to talk about that issue, because those that are the city fathers, we spent 2 years developing a plan, and then I guess it was published in 2021, 3 more years, that's 6 years. The one common element that's going to be needed throughout this plan is a sewer system. Okay? We're going to talk about the Aranco system right here, and specifically the Advantex, TEX system. It's in 55,000 locations across the country. It's used in residential developments, it's used in commercial developments, and it's used in municipalities. That's a pretty good endorsement and a pretty good reason why I took the advice of our engineers and went out to find the experts that can design and install and maintain such a system. And so thus we put together this group tonight, and I want to set some ground rules first. One, they're going to have about 10 minutes to speak, and then we'll have a time opportunity to ask questions. I'd like everybody to ask just one question so we don't get down a certain trail. If you have other questions, ask those at the end because they will be here and they can answer specific and personal questions that you've got. And speakers, when you speak, speak into the microphone so it can be heard. We are videotaping this presentation. We're going to put it on the Range Group website and then provide a link to the town hall so that you can go back or other people or friends can look at it and say, did they say this or did they say that? You'll have this as kind of like a digital library that you can go back and look at so that when you want to look at a municipal type sewer system, look at it, see if that makes sense or not. So I'd like the speakers to speak up. And when we have the question and answer, state your name, say it loud enough, and speakers, if you would, repeat that question so we all know what we're being told, and we'll plan to go from there. Our first speaker is in regard to regulations. What's the hierarchy of approval? Where do you start? Where does it stop? Does it stop? How does it correct itself? How does it permit itself? How often? Who does that? It just so happens Dr. Dick Urban, who worked previously with TDEC, that's the Tennessee Department of Environmental and Conservation. He is retired as the Chattanooga, Southeast Tennessee, make sure I'm saying this right, field office manager. And was it 30 years or 25?
Well, I was with TVA before that.
Okay.
Pollution control, and then 13 years with the state.
So how long you been in this pollution field? 42 years. That's great. So I'd like to ask Dick to come talk about regulations, what we're talking about, and the system by which we would get this permitted. Dick?
Thank you, Bill.
This system, all sewage treatment systems in the state of Tennessee must have a permit. Second.
That's okay. That's a broadcast out here.
Oh, back.
Just record the video. Don't speak loud.
Okay. So these systems do not have a discharge to the surface water. So they are not permitted the same way as Moccasin Bend. And Moccasin Bend has what's called an NPDES treatment permit, which is the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit. And those permits are issued on a 5-year basis, so that when it comes time to renew, the evaluation of the performance of those systems are looked at, and the permit is renewed, or there are maybe some requirements that are added to the permit. The other option is to have a state operating permit, which means that there is not a discharge to the surface water. It is a groundwater injection system from a technical standpoint, but it's just a system that puts water underground. And there are requirements in that state operating permit, and those requirements are that you do not have a direct connection to groundwater, so you're not putting any water that's coming from the treatment system into groundwater. You're not injecting it into the groundwater. That you do not have water coming to the surface and running off. Essentially, that would mean that you would have a a surface discharge, and you would need something besides a state operating permit, which, if the systems are properly operated, you will not have that kind of situation. You will not have water coming to the surface in ponding or running off. Some key aspects to these systems, it's just like your home. If you're living in Walden, you've got a septic tank and a field line. All this is an enlargement of that process, except you've got a discharge into the ground, into the surface soil that has been disinfected. You've still got a septage, an anaerobic system that digests the waste. But you filter that, you disinfect it, and then you discharge it in a very precise manner to the soil. And that discharge manner is dependent upon the ability of that soil to absorb and translate water up and down, and then vegetation being able to use that water to grow vegetation and transpire it. These systems have, like I said, they have specific requirements. The state operating permit is issued on a 5-year rotation, just like an NPDES permit. So that if you are starting today, you would get a permit, and then in 5 years, you would apply for a renewal of that permit. At that time, all of your monitoring data will be reviewed. All of the any complaints that you've had, any site inspections will be looked at and determined whether or not there needs to be changes made to your permit. But that does not mean that there is a time limit on the existence of these systems. Your home septic tank field line does not have a duration. It doesn't expire. So these systems do not expire as long as they're maintained, operated properly. The state does periodic inspections of these systems. The operator has to each month submit a set of parameters that have been required to be monitored, so that the state is able to determine how effectively operated the systems are. So if one of the requirements, for instance, is the biological oxygen demand for the material that is sent to the absorption field, that permit requirement is 45 parts per million. So that when the operator monitors that discharge, they have to do it on a daily basis. They have to report that on a monthly basis to the state, so that you get an idea of how the system is being operated and maintained. If there happens to be concerns in the community and they can complain, they can issue a complaint to the state, to the Chattanooga field office, and a staff person who is familiar with these systems will come and do a site inspection, and they will, if there are problems, they'll then work with the operator to get them resolved. So these systems are not just put out and left to their own operation. They are monitored, they are supervised, and they are effective when, and this is important, they are effective when they are properly installed, when they are properly maintained, and when they are properly operated. And that is why in Hamilton County, one of these systems put in place must be owned and operated by the WWTA. They are not operated necessarily by a homeowners association or an individual that would say that they are certified to operate them, but that individual is not going to be able to operate one in Hamilton County. So there's design specifications, they are reviewed, they are permitted, the installation is observed and monitored, the operation is monitored, any problems are then monitored and actions are taken to make sure that those are not polluting the environment.